This is the Vet Alumni Podcast with Tek Prem.
It's the Vet Alumni Podcast. I'm Tek, he's Prem, and it's the Phillies season preview show. We will be joined by Phillies reporter Scott Lauber from the Philadelphia Inquirer on the VetLine.
We will. Season is back in about, a week?
In a week.
Less than a week.
We're under a week away.
Meaningful baseball. Zach Wheeler
day
on the mound in the nation's capital against a division rival. And I'll tell you, Tek, the Nationals were coming on strong last year. Got some good young players. Going to be a fun season opening series.
Yep.
I expect the Phils to take 2 or 3 like any fan should.
Right.
You might not sweep on the road to start the season, but 2 of 3 come home feeling good to play a very beatable Rockies team. And boom, we're right back into baseball.
We're right back. I can't wait for that, actually. I'm getting there. I'm getting there now.
Well, you got all your attire on today.
Yeah, because I got to psych myself out into making the transition. I can't live in this, Super Bowl champs.
Right.
The page has to turn, and I'm turning it. It's time for the new league year has begun in the NFL already.
It has. It's exciting, man. It's a very exciting time.
So with that in mind, we start with the Birds. Brandon Graham went out on top, 2-time Super Bowl champion, and really the Super Bowl 52 hero.
Yeah, when you think about it, that strip sack, most people will think back to that play on Brady and think, oh, well, that's when we knew we were going to win. But if you remember, they needed Jake Elliott to hit almost a 50-yarder to put them up by 8 points.
Yeah, it's true.
If he would have missed that kick, Brady set up at midfield with the ball in a minute and some change to go.
Even though I'll tell you live, I did too. I said, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
But I was still
we're going to win the Super Bowl. I was running around the room.
I was still kind of nervous until that Hail Mary hit the deck. Yeah. And when you watch that replay, you see how close that was to getting caught?
It was. There was so many hands in there, but Gronk had his
almost
hand in there.
Caught it, man. Wow, but you know what? History will reflect that the Birds are one of only 2 NFL franchises to score 40 or more points in 2 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
Niners being the other squad.
That's what they had to do to get it done. They had to beat the best, and they had to score 40 to do it.
40-22 and 41-33.
Right.
40-22 isn't a scoregami. It actually had happened, I think, 2 other times. I looked it up. 41-33.
I just 40-6 was my score, but I hear you.
Well, that's the real score. It was 2:57 remaining in the third quarter, up 40-6.
Right.
Remarkable.
And BG got to play in both. He is truly a 2-time champion. And look, I love BG. Great player, great guy, an all-time Eagle. All-time Eagle.
Without a doubt.
But I've had enough, Prem. I've had enough. He'll still be around in some capacity. It isn't goodbye. We're not saying so long to the guy.
Right.
He'll be here.
Word on the street is he wants to meet with Jeffrey Lurie to talk about how he can still help the team.
Yeah, I think right now you invent a role for him and eventually have him intern as a coach, a coaching intern.
Yeah.
And, who knows, one day he could be our defensive coordinator down the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's how these things go. That's how Aaron Glenn, good example.
I would like to see when it's time for Vic to hang it up, to pass it to Brandon Graham. That would be fantastic.
Well, it just comes down to would he be ready for that? But
would he be ready?
Well,
you never know. I'm saying that open Vic will be here for another 4 or 5 years, at least.
You would hope so.
You hope so.
He's obviously, this is probably his last stop on the NFL train.
Yeah, he's from the area.
Yeah.
I figure,
Why would you leave? You have a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
A young, fiery coach.
And you got everything's coming up roses for the next 3 years, this 3-year window. So at least this 3-year window.
Yeah, and the defensive studs that they're going to lock up. I mean, this core on both sides of the ball is here for the long haul in NFL terms, which is, 3-4 years.
Right.
But that's huge because that stability, you already got the monkey off your back by winning a chip. Now in those games, I feel like they're going to play even looser than they have been. And Jalen's been lights out when it matters most.
Yeah, I agree. But look, I love BG. It's time for Howie to get back to work. The Jags have made edge rusher Travon Walker available, former Georgia Bulldog, former first overall pick in 22, had 10 sacks in each of his last 2 seasons. It's time for Howie to get back to work. There's still moves to be made.
Would be a nice acquisition.
It would
flip
be.
him Huff, let Huff get a new start down there, maybe a pick or two. And that would probably get him. Huff and like a first and a second would get him.
That would get it done. I would do it today.
I would too.
And there's still a gaping hole at safety. I would prefer...
Sidney Brown's going to be your starter probably.
I don't know.
I think they believe in him.
Julian Blackman's still out there.
Yeah, but I think they believe in Sidney Brown.
I can't give it to him. He's got to earn it.
Here's
That's
the
thing about Sidney Brown. He has to earn it.
They give these guys a chance to earn it with their play. Look, Quinyon Mitchell was thrown out as a rookie. I know he was a first-round pick. I get it. But
well, yeah.
But even
he
Coop,
was different than Sidney Brown.
They throw these guys out there to prove it on the field. I mean, they do it.
Sidney Brown's going to have every opportunity, but I want to see Sidney Brown earn it. And to have him go up against, Andre Sam and Lou Sine, like that's not good enough. Yeah. I need Sidney, like what they did for Ringo. Yeah, they want Ringo to be the starter. They didn't give it to him.
But you got a veteran to
They brought in
Adoree
Jackson. He couldn't beat out Isaiah Rodgers. So now he's got to try to beat out Adoree Jackson. Now, look, I think the Eagles in private, in the office, in private, they have Ringo penciled in as the starter because they want Ringo to win the job. But Ringo truly does have to earn it. He has to beat out.
Yeah, right. But I was talking
Jackson.
about for Sidney Brown. I mean, I agree with you. I think they should bring in a veteran safety or maybe even trade for somebody.
Maybe.
If it makes sense. I mean, they have so much draft wealth right now. Howie you could almost make the case that he could probably have anybody in the league he wants right now on a roster if he has the equity to get them, even if it means he overpays a little bit.
Yeah, I know there's a guy Giglio was talking about also on the Colts. I think his name's Nick Cross. He's a safety.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, for me, Julian Blackman's out there. You don't have to trade for him or anything. He's a free agent. You could probably do a 2-year deal with him worth what you would pay CJ for 1.
You talking about for Walker?
No, for Julian Blackman.
Oh, for Julian Blackman.
I want Walker.
Yeah.
That I want. They can't be done on the edge. Now, look, after our show dropped last week, they signed Azeez Ojulari, cheap 1-year, $4 million deal. He's dealt with soft tissue injuries, which turned a lot of teams off. He did have another 1-year deal on the table for close to $6 million. He chose the Eagles because, the bottom line, I don't even think it's just so much a championship thing. Agents know that if you do a 1-year deal in Philadelphia, that you're going to hit free agency the very next year and be worth double.
Right. Hey,
at least.
It's becoming a smart business decision to take the patented Howie Prove It deal. And a thing I like about the Azeez signing is that, even though he's battled injuries like you mentioned, he's averaged like a sack every 2 games.
Yeah, he's
when he's out there, he's got hair on fire, and now he's gonna be back with his brothers, back with his guys he knows and is comfortable with. I think that's for me.
The Georgia thing is big. Yeah.
That's good enough for 3 more sacks from him. And
that's
just that alone is good for 3 more sacks.
That's why I love Travon Walker. Georgia, same played
I'm
with them,
all
played
in
with
on
those same guys.
on the flying bulldog eagle.
I am for it. You know what I mean?
An eagle with a bulldog head. Someone needs to make the shirt.
Yeah, I think that there is a Philly Bulldogs thing. If you Google it.
But like an actual eagle, then you just put a fat bulldog head on it.
Yeah, I think I don't know if they did that one. That's actually a good idea.
Not bad.
But
it's going to get stolen now.
Yes, it is going to get stolen. The common theme with the clearance rack shop and how he's been doing.
I wouldn't go as far as to say clearance rack. I'd say
clearance rack guys.
It's last season's line.
Yeah,
not the new season's line.
I'm not saying it in a derogatory way. What I'm saying is, the fans are walking in Nordstrom. They're looking at the front. They see the sweater for $149, and they're like, "I want this." Where Howie's going, I'm going to the back.
He's going to Marshalls.
He's going, or Marshalls.
He's getting designer stuff at a cheaper price.
Maybe.
Zach Bowen was a Marshalls buy.
Look, you go to Nordstrom's and you go back of that clearance rack.
That would have been Bryce Huff. Would have been the Nordstrom's to the front of the rack.
Yeah, look, you could find something just as nice. Maybe it's not the same brand. Maybe it's a brand you didn't hear of as much or a lesser brand. Yeah. But you can find something of similar quality for a third of the price.
Right.
And that's what Howie's done this offseason, and they kind of were in
He's
position.
done it repeatedly, multiple seasons.
Yeah, but they had no choice. They had to do it this year, and I understand it. And the common theme with what he's done, and he did it last year too, but it is so abundantly apparent that 24, 25, 26-year-olds that have something to prove. I mean, so that's the common theme of signing guys that have something to prove.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
exactly.
That creates competition. Like, I've heard a lot of people say they don't like Calcaterra as a starter. I do.
I think Calcaterra would be fine.
I watched almost a month of Eagles football
he'd be fine.
where a tight end caught the ball and got a decent run after the catch, and I forgot it wasn't Goddard.
And he's got receiver hands.
Yeah, okay, so he's not the best blocker, but to be fair,
he's better though.
His
He's better
blocking
than people say.
improved this season.
It did. And now you brought in two other tight ends. They both might not make the team. One of them will. But, they're both
should.
They're both run support type of tight ends, but guys that also can catch the ball.
They're also pushing, by signing two tight ends, they're pushing E.J. Jenkins to either make it or break it.
I wanted them to sign Uchek. I wanted them to sign Uchek from the Niners. I really wanted him.
Oh, yeah. But he resigned.
He's perfect for this offense.
I know.
He did. He was out there floating for like 2-3 days, I think, and the Niners brought him back on 1 year or something.
But they brought back Van Sumeren as a fullback. So, I mean...
Yeah, we were talking about that last week. You're right.
They're looking at that like, we liked what he did.
For sure.
And then he got hurt.
He knows the playbook. It's easy. There's no degree of difficulty there for him to get on field and run the plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I like the common theme of what they did, the concept. Let's bring in guys that are 25, 26 years old.
24 in some cases.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
That have something to prove. Kenyon Green is 23.
It's just a smart business approach.
Right.
In the NFL.
I believe that,
because they're young, man, and they obviously, at some point in time, a scout looked at all these guys and graded them pretty high.
Yeah.
All of these guys.
It's true.
And so he believes that he's going to be able, with this culture and this staff and the guys they have in place, the core players, he believes that he's going to be able to bring that back out in them. The reason why a guy like, say, Green was a first-round pick as a lineman, Statler now can bring that out of him.
Exactly.
And then having Aziz there with all of his brothers from college, and he's still only 24, maybe that could bring out the greatness in him.
Yeah.
Uche, same deal. I mean, they're smart moves.
The offensive line, Fred Johnson is gone.
That kind of hurts a bit because he was all right. He filled in.
But you know what happened immediately after that signing is the Eagles met with I think it was a kid from Iowa State, offensive tackle. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here.
I'm fine with that at 32, by the way.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that if they trade for Travon Walker, if they actually do that deal, they're not doing edge in the draft, at least in the early rounds.
Well, that might cost that first-round pick this year.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
And that's fine.
He's a first-round talent,
fine.
so and it's from 22. It's from 2 seasons ago.
You take that and you run with it.
Exactly. So
because this is your window now.
Yeah, I look at it like, man, if you're going to go O tackle in that first round or second round pick, that's what you got to do because you're short there. You're good at guard now. I mean, they're banking on Steen and Kenyon Green
Steen
to
and
develop
Green, baby.
the Steen and Green show.
Green and Steen.
And, we shouldn't be writing off Trevor Keegan either from Michigan.
Yeah, Trevor Keegan, All-American.
He just hasn't grown into his NFL body yet. We have to see what he looks like in camp.
Yeah, for sure.
But, at least we know at the guard spot, they're not thin.
No, they have some depth. They have some options.
Yeah.
And Statlin's going to get the best out of these guys.
Tackles where they're thin. So, right now, they're thin at some positions. They have a gaping hole at safety. They're thin at offensive tackle. They're thin at inside linebacker. They have to, and I believe they're thin at backup corner too.
Well, they are. I was getting to that. Their depth at corner has been attacked. I mean, when you lose Slay and Bradbury, even though Bradbury didn't play last year, I get it. You lose two guys in that room. They're quality guys. Say what you want about how Bradbury finished his career. He had an all-pro year here when we went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Say what you want about Slay. He just had a career year.
Yeah.
Just now. So you got to replace two high-caliber, all-pro level at one point players. And, if somebody goes down is when you'd feel that. Right now, I think without injury, they actually wouldn't look that much different. I mean, Adoree Jackson is not Darius Slay. If he wins the job Where if Slay was a 9 out of 10 on the effective scale, Adori's going to be a 7. So it's not, in this defense, it's not a huge difference to me.
Right.
Now, it remains to be seen, though. But I like the competition that they're creating.
They want Ringo to win the job. It's as simple as that.
Hey, he's fast enough.
They put that in the tea leaves. However, they made it so that, he's got to earn it. Yeah. And I'd like to see that with Sidney Brown.
Everybody in Fangio's defense got to earn it. That's what I like about it.
Well, definitely, you're right about that. But, if Dean isn't, and I think he probably will be good to go week 1, but let's say he isn't, you're in trouble at that spot. I mean,
Kaiser White, is he still floating out there? I believe he is.
I don't know that I want him.
I think I would be fine with that. Why
really?
wouldn't you? Yeah.
I'm just not interested. He's just
gotcha.
Because why wasn't he signed? You know what I mean?
That's fair.
He's been floating around.
Yeah.
He was kind of mid with us, and then he left us, and he was mid where he went.
I think he went to the Chargers,
Arizona.
right? Oh, was it Arizona?
And then it was the Chargers. He's floated around since he left us. So I'm not really in on him.
Maybe Howie can find another Zach Bond, like a 3rd-round pick, backup linebacker on another team right now that they haven't gotten the most out of. There's always a guy.
Yeah.
I got to reserve all my judgment. I know we have to talk about what we know, and this is just what we know so far.
Yeah, it's what we know.
But I got to wait until after that draft weekend, and we take an inventory of what Howie did, because I guarantee you, Tech, I don't know if it's going to be as big as the A.J. Brown trade or to move up for Devontae trade, but Howie's going to make a move with another team to shake up his position or acquire a player or something to that effect, or for future picks, and it's going to be semi-big. I believe at this draft, not A.J. Brown big, next tier down type of move on draft night. I'm feeling something like that.
You feeling that?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I think it's how he knows what he wants.
I feel like he could move up. That's what I'm thinking here.
I don't know if he should move up, though.
Well, it all depends.
No, we did talk about this. If there are guys there.
If there's a safety, right now I think there's. This is an edge-driven draft. I think there's a handful of edges that you could take. Somewhere in the 20s that could be impactful.
Might fall to 32.
I think there's 2 tight ends in this first round.
Well, Mason. Is it Mason Taylor? Is that his name?
Well, he's going to be a day 2 guy. But there's 2
That's
guys.
Surprising.
There's Tyler Warren and the Loveland kid. Those 2, I believe, those 2 are impact year 1 tight ends. After that, you got day 2 guys that are like rookies for a year. In their second year, they might give you some impact. But I don't...
Like a Brent Selleck.
Yeah, I don't know that you'll get year 1 impact from anybody beyond the 2 first-round rated and graded tight ends.
I don't think drafting tight end in the first round, personally...
I wouldn't do it.
It makes no sense to me at this point. I would... This is going to sound... Maybe not, because you just said we need depth there. I would take the best corner at 32 if the grade is better than where you're picking him. If a corner that was graded top 20 falls to 32, grab him and throw him in that room with Coop and Q. And I think that you could have the makings of another elite secondary if you draft another Coop and Q.
Yeah. I don't know that
that's what I would do if I was Howie.
I don't know that they will because of the fact that they did that last year.
And plus they got Ringo. Yeah, I hear you.
So, but
true, but that's an important spot, and you just lost a Pro Bowler.
True. I think you move up if you don't do a Javon Walker deal and there's a really nice edge rusher available, an impactful one of the 4 or 5 guys in the first round with a first round grade. If one of those guys is available entering the 20s, Howie's got to look up and go, what's it going to take for us to get from 32 to 24? I would say the same thing about offensive tackle, because I feel like offensive tackles, you can get one in the 3rd round, sure. But I don't believe you're going to get a Lane Johnson in the 3rd round. Lane Johnson was a first-round pick.
Yeah, that's a generational player.
I believe and they probably have circled a handful of offensive tackles because I think there's going to be at least three that go in the first round.
Yeah.
If one of those guys starts to drop, and 22 is on the board, 23 is on the board, and they're looking at their big board and they're going, hey, he's still there. How is he going to get on the phone and go, what's it going to take to move to 24?
Yeah, because they build in the trenches. They value the trenches probably more than anybody, except for maybe, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, I guess. I don't know.
Right. So I would say there's
And Baltimore.
I think there's 3, and now I'm beginning to think if they don't sign a Julian Blackman or that kind of, I don't know. There's no other safeties I see that are attractive.
No, you got to trade for somebody.
Yeah, and
they got to trade for somebody.
And then just for the hell of it, I Googled Julian Blackman to see if there's any stir of what they're saying. And page after page, Super Bowl champions named best fit for Colts free agent. Eagles exploring ex-Colts safety Julian Blackmore. Eagles, could they find a solution with the ex-Colts veteran? It's like page after pages. And I'm going to the best available ones left, and I'm looking at the price tag, and I'm going, well, Julian Blackman, Jordan Fuller's now gone. He's off the board. So I'm like, well, Blackman makes the most sense. And I go and Google him, and obviously that's the stirs that the Eagles are trying to decide whether or not they want to sign Julian Blackman. So if they don't do that.
I wouldn't be upset at that.
So if they don't do that, then there are 4 positions then you look at. I mean, it's best player available, but let's be honest. It's best player available at these 4 positions. It's defensive end, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, and safety. That's what, I mean, if one of those 4 drop, then you move up.
You move up and you get them. You go get them.
If things start to look predictable, I think your best bet is to move out of the first round.
Well, I was thinking that too, and honestly, there's going to be teams that are desperate to get good players in because they're bad, and you could maybe even swap first rounders. Maybe you give somebody your 32 for whatever their first round is next year,
right?
And then hope on some losses.
Yeah.
Like a team that is expected to not be that good, and Howie does a deal with them, says, hey, take our first. We're going to add your first next year. And then you have even more flexibility next year, which is a really important year for this team in terms of free agents and extensions that might come due and stuff like that, and decisions next year, next offseason.
Yeah. And then I go and I look at best free agent inside linebackers available. And there's only 3 guys that are 27 or under. And it's Chris Barnes from Arizona, who is at that right price, made 1.3 last year, so he's around that price. That's what they want to pay for a backup
on that
linebacker.
Bargain rack.
Yeah, so you go there. Devin White, you're not doing that. So
that experiment expired.
Now you got to go down a little bit to the Kaliki Hudson from Cleveland, who's 27, and Chandler Wooten, who's about to be 27.
They'll just draft
from Carolina.
somebody, man. They'll just draft somebody.
These are guys that are $1 million. These are $1 million guys.
It's trade or draft if you want another good linebacker, or like a linebacker that has some kind of ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, they might just. See, I would still bring in a guy like the Chris Barnes from Arizona. I would still bring in a guy and have Trotter have to beat out that guy.
You do have Trotter Jr., and I mean, hey, look, everybody's going to get an opportunity with this team. They've made that very clear.
Yep.
And that they should. Look what Nolan Smith did with his opportunity. Look what Nakobe Dean did with his opportunity.
Now, the interesting thing is if Travon Walker, if they do that deal, then he's got to get paid next year.
And so does Jalen Carter.
So Jalen Carter, Travon Walker, Jordan Davis, potentially Nolan Smith, Reed Blankenship. These are 6 guys right off the top. Now, if you do Travon Walker, right now it's just 5. But, like, you got those guys, and then down the road a year later, you got to do Q and Coop. Like, you got guys that have to get paid.
Yeah, the clock is ticking. And that's why the window's open now. That's why Howie should just go get the best players he can, because they're trying to repeat. They're trying to go to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. They're trying to win 4 Super Bowls in 9 years.
Yeah, I think...
Or win 3, I'm sorry. They're trying to win 3 in 9 years.
I think what they're doing, and they're sneaking it in, it's not like I said last week, it's not the team isn't going through a retool year. It's elements of the defense that are being retooled this year, and Howie's kind of slipping it in the midst of, like, guys, we know that this isn't some kind of fallback year or retool, or you got a Super Bowl MVP quarterback, you got Saquon Barkley in his prime, you got your superstar wide receivers in their prime, you have your offensive line, which some of those pieces are aging a little bit, but they're in their prime.
As a group they are, yeah.
Yeah, and like you have all of these bits and pieces that are like either in their prime or young and really hungry. Like, you can't take a step back here, but I know the philosophy is like, okay, everybody's locked up for this 3-year window, so let's go get one more in this 3-year window.
Right.
I get that that's the philosophy.
That's what it is.
And I know fans are going to be edgy, like, oh, this is a repeat. I know I'm going to be. They're supposed to be repeat. I'm going to go nuts.
But the offense and their style of play and the way they hold the ball, and Fangio still is a stud at every level of the defense. Starting opening day, they're going to put out a really good product on defense. Maybe not a top 3, but a top 10 for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it'll be.
This is a 12-5 season. When I look at the schedule, they have a harder schedule.
I mean, the only playoff.
It doesn't matter.
The only non-playoff teams are the Giants. They're in their own division.
Right.
The Giants and the Cowboys.
But the way these teams are looking at it is like, oh, we got to play the Eagles. So, and that's the truth.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
On that alone, Jalen will drop 5 games, but that's it, man. That's how good I think they are now. That's how much of a winner he is now. It's just solidified now more, and it's more tangible. We've seen it now. You know, since he came into the league, me and you would talk on our show about how he believed in a kid, and he's got what it takes to be a champion. I think he could do it. I think they can get it done, and then lo and behold, he does. No matter what the schedule looks like, we just watched him demolish Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So I think that they lose 5 games next year, maybe less. Maybe they go 13-4 again.
I think they laid down, as a team, they laid down the blueprint right now for other teams. Now, the caveat of
it took them 3 quarters.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
The caveat of that blueprint that the Eagles laid down to how to beat the Chiefs, not to just beat them, dismantle them.
Well, the Buccaneers kind of did.
Right. Yes.
Same thing.
Yeah. But I just look at, it was so dominant the way we did it. And the caveat.
And it started out so frustrating with a bad call.
Yeah.
I was like, here we go.
Here we go.
This is going to be a horrible night.
Yep, here we go.
I was screaming. I
what
got
the
up
refs want.
Shariva's sitting on the couch, and she's like, calm down, it's first play. I was like, nah, you don't understand. I was sitting on my desk across the room from the TV, upset after one call.
One call.
Because I thought to myself,
just like the beginning of the end.
Here we go. Here we go. And
know.
Everything from that point, amazing.
Amazing. So, but the caveat to that blueprint is you have to have the personnel to do it. And the Eagles had the personnel. They had the right guys on the defensive line. I mean, look, Josh Sweat's a solid guy. But going up against an out-of-position Joe Thuney, that was
huge. You know what? I thought about that.
Time.
I talked about that on X with these clowns that were hating on the Eagles leading up to that game. I read about him changing positions.
It was like it's going to be.
That is huge because the guy that put at guard.
Baldy said it. Baldy's like, this is going to be a big Josh Sweat game. It's like, yeah, Joe Thuney's playing out of position.
Right, because the guy that they had blocking Jalen Carter was completely incapable.
Right, and then Milton Williams, he got to eat because he's facing the backup for Joe Thuney on that. So it's like,
it's a trickle-down effect, and I mean, that's the beauty of how this Trench's roster is built for the Birds.
It is. All right, some rule changes. We won't get into all of them, just the ones that concern us. The Packers are desperately trying to get the tush-push banned.
Sour grapes, man. It's sour grapes.
Desperate. At this point, it is. It's pathetic.
Anybody can do the same thing.
I know.
The Ravens do a good job with it, and we talked about this before. They actually have Mark Andrews take the snap, which is ingenious.
All this is a modified quarterback sneak.
Yeah, so and the push doesn't even really get it for them a lot of the time. It's Jalen anyway.
I mean,
the push helps, but it's like it's really 50-50.
I look at it after watching a bunch of them. It's the combination of
mostly
Jalen's
legs,
and Jordan Mailata. Mailata does so much. He'll just the way he's able to just move guys.
He should be taken,
forward.
and they should do a modification on the tush push. It's not a push play at all. It's Mailata and the short pistol, like the 3-yard pistol. And they snap him the ball and the pistol, and he just gets ahead of steam for 3 yards.
Refrigerator Perry style.
Puts his head straight down and just straight. If you want to get a half yard.
Remember, they wanted to do that before. Remember, like his second year, they were like, hey, they should bring him out as a tight end.
You see video of him playing rugby? Have you seen the videos?
Yeah. Oh, he's a monster. He's the biggest guy on the field.
Just pitch it to him.
I know.
You could pitch it to him 7 yards back. He gets a 7-yard running head start.
And he ain't slow.
You think a cornerback or a safety is tackling him?
No. I mean,
he'll get fined for hurting dudes.
I know.
I don't know. So
I would love to see
my
that.
My point is, like, they can try to ban it because it's one of the best plays of all time now because they're trying to ban it. It'll just solidify its legend.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, this was too good. The NFL had to ban it.
Yeah, I mean that's why a lot of people are like, we don't want them to, but it's good.
I don't even care at this point. You have Saquon Barkley. You have,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, look.
And now you got Van Sumer, and you're solidifying what you want to do there.
They can just line up in the I formation if they wanted to, man, and get these. But
and they never do.
I love that formation.
We're such a non-I formation
I would just
squad.
love to see a strong I with one wide receiver out to the right.
You know, we have the personnel for it.
Jumbo I, bro.
I love that.
It's one of the most, like, intimidating formations in
Now
football.
you got Dylan out there. They're set up for that kind of thing.
You have a 3 running back tail. You go
I
too deep
know.
and then Saquon behind 2 of
I don't
them.
know why they don't do that.
Yeah, you know what, though? Maybe they always have new wrinkles every year.
It's true.
Maybe there's some conversations going on with Patullo and Sirianni.
Yeah, we got Patullo.
Patullo,
It's true.
Sirianni, and Fangio brothers. It sounds like a like a
It's
mob
all
law
Italian.
firm.
I know.
Sirianni, Fangio, Patullo,
That's what it's
Esquire.
like. It's like the mafia. The Eagles want to change the postseason overtime rules to reflect the regular season overtime rules, basically meaning
It's a
they want
logical.
both teams to get a
It's
possession.
logical. Why not?
They have a logical rule change. The Packers have this desperate, pathetic.
They have a sour grapes rule change.
I know.
They have. What are some of the other ones? You know, do you have any other ones?
Well, offhand, I know Detroit.
I only heard about the 2 you mentioned.
Detroit wanted to. I think they wanted to end the automatic first down.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I like this.
Do you?
Here's the thing. I'll tell you why. 3rd and 13, right? And on a short 7-yard crosser, on a 3rd and 13, a defensive back, it's like a measly little tug. All right, he holds them. Sure. It should then just be 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6. Not. It depends on where it happens. It should depend on where it happens.
I get it.
If the hold doesn't occur past the first down line,
I guess I'm indifferent.
that's the way to do it. That's the way they should do it.
I guess I'm indifferent because when it happens for us, I love the automatic first down.
Yeah, but look at the Super Bowl. Look at the Super Bowl with Bradbury, bro.
Yeah, I get it.
Because that ball wasn't getting caught if he's held it
I
out.
know, that kind of screwed us
So that
up.
situation, the Eagles would be in line for this too. It would
Yeah.
make sense. I think
Yeah.
it should be dependent on where does the illegal contact or holding happen. Does it happen past the first down marker? If it does, judgment call, then it's a first down. If it doesn't, 5 yards.
I don't know that they're going to pass that rule. It'll be amended. I think they like that rule.
3rd and 27. And there's like a dump off and they call illegal contact. You know what I mean?
People hate the pass interference or illegal contact downfield where it's the first down where the ball's all the way up there.
I think pass interference should be limited to 15-yard penalties like personal fouls.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That could get sticky.
Because I'm like, yo, that would have been a catch if the dude didn't grab his arm.
Yeah, like if it's a 50-yard bomb.
So why can't that ball should be right there?
It's really tough.
But I know
man.
people, it's a double edge
It's
because
tough.
there's two sides to
It's
that.
really a tough
I know.
one. The pass interference one I'm not so convicted about, but
I don't know if that was I know that Detroit had said that they wanted to they proposed that no more automatic first down on 5-yard penalties like the
I tell you what, that's not going to help. It's not going to help Goff throwing interceptions
No.
in the postseason.
It's not. No, it's not going to help their postseason.
The fact that they're in Detroit alone doesn't help their postseason chances.
No. But, hey, look, they'll take a step back on the coaching, but,
Never been to a Super Bowl. Never been to a Super Bowl.
They got their full defense back.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
We'll see.
They drop like flies out there.
That's true. Now that we got that out of the way, the Phillies, Prem, we're under a week away from opening day.
Yes, sir.
Already, Ranger Suarez has back problems that can keep him out of the rotation to start the season.
Tek, I'm telling you, bro. If I have to watch more than 2 months of baseball with Taijuan Walker as our 5th starter,
Well, that's what you're looking at.
I'm going to start getting really negative about the Phils, and I don't do that with the Phils.
He fooled everyone in Clearwater, Taijuan Walker. He had us all saying,
he got lit up the other day. Lit up the other day.
Lit up, and not just lit up to where it's like, oh, well, that's spring training. No.
It was only half starters.
It was lit up
It was half
to
starters.
where, dude, the true colors got shown on the dude.
It's the same Taijuan Walker.
It's the same guy. We cannot be fooled into thinking.
It's because the contract they gave him was so awful. They have no choice. Paying the guy $20 million a year. This is the last year of the deal. Yeah, I know. Honestly, man, give me just your best AA prospect and throw him in there, and it's probably better. Is how I feel.
Painter can't come up soon enough. I mean, where's Painter? I need Painter.
Make a trade or something.
Trade
deadline's not till July.
Yeah, I mean,
make a trade.
And I don't trust Dombrowski at all at the deadline. I just don't. I I just don't.
Well, you didn't like Austin Hayes.
No, or Estevez.
Estevez was 6.5 out of 10.
He never had a clean inning, Estevez. He always gave up hits.
Very Lidge-like. Very Lidge-like.
Well, I thought Lidge was another level.
But he would get in a jam every time. Bases loaded, 1 out, double play in the game.
Alvarado used to do that too.
He has been ridiculous.
We'll see if
spring,
he can bounce back. And
102.4 on the gun.
Right. I just, watching Taijuan Walker turn back into a pumpkin, I can't sit here for a month or two of baseball while everybody's getting warmed up. There's this season.
I can't do it, man.
And it's Taijuan Walker every 5th day. I can't deal.
I'd rather a bullpen game. Like when Strom's back, I'd rather, let Strom go the first 2 innings, get 2 clean zeros up on the board with Strom, and then maybe you throw in like a Tanner Banks for a couple innings. I mean, this is all better than Walker starting.
Joe Ross, maybe.
It's all better than Walker starting.
Joe Ross has not looked great in
But
spring.
still, don't you kind of prefer that over Walker starting?
I prefer anybody. Yeah.
I'll take a pen game over that.
Yeah, I hear
That's
you.
where I'm at with it, man. Because it's like beating a dead horse, and now the horse is decaying, and you're still beating it. You're beating a decayed dead horse.
It's like, he looked good for a little while against single A kids that ain't making no roster. And then when he had to face some starters.
Chisholm absolutely launched one on him, man.
Yeah, I think this is what it's going to be.
I had the game on. I'm at home, and I hadn't looked at the box score. I didn't know who was starting. No, I'm saying before the game. I didn't know who was starting.
Oh, okay.
I just turned it on at 1 o'clock. I like doing that in spring, seeing what they throw at me, right?
Yeah.
I don't check the lineups. And I'm like, all right, I look at the batting lineup. Initially, when I put it on the screen, I'm like, oh, they're playing the starters. Then I see Walker start. I'm like, man, why can't I? I'm rarely watching a spring game. Why can't it be Sanchez or, I know Suarez got hurt, or Suarez or Wheeler or Knowles. I saw Wheeler pitch 1. I saw Sanchez pitch 1. Other than that, I've watched a few sparse innings.
I saw Sanchez look good. I saw Nola look good.
Hey, we have 3 legitimate MLB
I
starters.
saw 2 different performances of Luzardo where he looked really good and then he looked terrible. And I didn't see the third one, the last one, but supposedly he looked good in that one. So, I mean, look, I'm okay with the four starters. I'm not okay with Taijuan Walker having to be the guy. I'm not looking forward to it. And I'm also, by the way, getting that feeling that Rob Thompson is getting cold feet on the lineup change. And we could see the lineup like it always was. Schwarber, Turner, Harper.
I think he's seen more good games this spring when Turner's leading off.
I hope you're right.
Well, the one in particular I watched when Turner hit the home run, Schwarber had the 2-run or 3-run pop after he was in the 4-hole. Like
right.
These are what I was talking about why it makes sense to have Schwarber in the 4, even the 5-hole, because you're gonna have guys on base in the first inning.
I would rather Schwarber hit 5th. That's my ideal spot. But look, it is
what
it
fourth.
is.
Yeah, put Bone 4th.
It is what it is. Thompson's gonna do what he does. And by the way, I like Rob Thompson as a guy. I really like him as a guy. I don't love him as a manager, and this is it. This is it for me.
I don't
it.
love him. I don't love him. It's somewhere like in between. I approve of him. I'll tell you what, though, Tek, this Max Kepler is a baseball player.
I like Kepler.
And he was really good in Minnesota for a number of years. I remember always thinking about, Minnesota's lineup, but I always got these sneaky good guys that you don't realize who they are until they start playing for the Twins. And it's like,
it's true.
He's a pretty good ball player. Like Buxton was another one like that on the Twins. And Kepler, I mean, he had an all-star season a couple years back, and he's playing with a lot of stars. He doesn't have to be a guy. He just has to be like a slightly above average. With all the stars the Phils have, the supporting cast, like the Marshes, Keplers, Realmutos, they just got to be slightly above average.
He's going to put Stott in the 8-hole, which I don't approve of. And it's just...
But that's okay, though, because the bottom of your lineup, you're getting some base runners to turn it over.
But I'd rather see, if you're going to go by that philosophy, put him 9th. I like him 9th because
you got Marsh down there probably.
Because after the first inning, now you're looking at Stott, Turner, Harper, Bone.
No, you're right.
Now you're looking at
right
the way
that.
I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see Stott, Turner,
right.
Harper,
The
Bone.
the leadoff is only in the first inning. Then it's
right.
Yeah.
And if Schwarber's the 4th, then it would be Bone, Schwarber. So it doesn't really matter what number it is.
Right.
It's like Stott is like the de facto.
Look,
lead off B.
Right, exactly. That's what the 9-hole is. If you're right about that.
I don't want Marsh there. I mean,
this team's going to win 90 to 95 games. They're going to make the playoffs.
right.
They could win the division, which because of how good the pitching is, but it probably would be. They could win the wild card, like at the top wild card spot. I could see that. But that's what they are. I mean, they're solid. They're a solid club. They're more solid than probably 80% of the teams in Major League Baseball. And they're going to win games. It's just the question always is going to come down to, when it matters most, are the guys swinging tree trunks, or are they swinging bats that they can handle?
Right.
That's it. That's where it's at.
I know.
Because the pitching really, besides the pen fell apart against the Mets, but starters weren't horrible. You know, that first game one, think back to that game one, Wheeler lost 1-0. Right? That's supposed to be, or no, we're winning 1-0, and then the pen blows it after Wheeler leaves.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You know, if you win that game, they probably win the series.
You can't, right. You can't just put up one run. I mean, that's
No.
what I worry about.
It's like they're swinging like redwoods all of a sudden.
I worry about that. Me
too.
I worry about
Me too, man. That's the only question with this team. I feel like they're still in their window where the playoffs are pretty much a given. Just look at the roster. These guys are seasoned players.
Yeah.
They're going to do enough in September, even if they sneak in to get in. It's just a question of, all right, well, are you beating the LAs, Atlantas, New Yorks, and San Diegos of the world or not? San Diego probably.
Yeah.
But the other three, I don't know.
I don't know. Well, you know who does know or might know? Phil's reporter, Scott Lauber from the Philadelphia Inquirer. We'll get his insight on the vet line. I see the light blinking.
Yes, sir.
Coming right up next.
Vet Alumni. And now, it's the Vet Line.
Why don't you answer your phone?
Joined now on the vet line by Scott Lauber of the Philadelphia Inquirer and the author of the Big 50 Phillies book. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how are you? Good to be here.
We're very excited to have you. It's that time of year, man. Baseball's back. The spring is here. The boys of summer are around the corner. What's your take on the overall vibe of the team, the attitude of the team, and the talk within the clubhouse going into this opening game against the Nationals next week?
Yeah, it's been a quiet spring, you know, and I say that because there isn't like a brand new acquisition that's here like Juan Soto and Mets camp. There isn't a big new name. It's pretty much the same group, the same cast of characters that you're accustomed to have seen the last 3-4 years. And they've stayed relatively injury-free here throughout camp. So it's been kind of a quiet camp, and they're just hoping to kind of get out of here now over the next few days and get up north and get ready for the start of the season. And I think, I think in that sense, there's a lot of excitement and anticipation for next Thursday in Washington. But yeah, I mean, expectations are high. They won 95 games last year. It didn't end the way they would have liked to have ended in October. But, I think they think that they're going to give themselves another shot at the postseason again. And if they can do that, they'll like their chances.
I agree with you. I think they will give themselves another shot in the postseason. A lot of seasoned players, veteran players, guys that are hungry for a ring, even though a couple of the guys might have one already. So the lineup has been a big conversation this spring. What's your personal opinion? Do you like the idea of maybe putting Schwarber in the 4 spot and having Trey turn off, or do you want to just keep it the way it's been the last few years with Schwarber atop the lineup?
Yeah, I think, honestly, like I see it both ways. It's on one hand, I think, look, if you were to tell me right now that putting Trey Turner at the top of the lineup will enable him to do two things, to use the field more and to maybe be a little bit more disciplined in the strike zone, then I would tell you, go ahead and do it. He was that kind of a hitter earlier on in his career with the Nationals. He did use the whole field more. He did not chase as many pitches out of the zone as he has in his 2 years with the Phillies. And maybe some of that has to do with the fact that he did lead off more earlier in his career. Now, saying that, I think that you've got to look long and hard at Schwarber, because I know he's not a prototype leadoff hitter. I know he clogs the bases because he doesn't have a ton of speed.
Right.
But you've won a lot of games with him at the top of the order the last 3 years, and I think that it's hard to turn away from that. I guess where I fall on it, and I've written this, is that it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't think it really matters. Like, for all the amount of attention that we've spent on who should lead off, you talk to people around the game, and it doesn't matter whether they're like analytics people or if they're old time scouts, who watch the game and rely on the eye test and all of that. I think most people feel the same way, which is that as long as you have the right hitters hitting in the right parts of the lineup. So, like, as long as you don't lose your mind and bat Bryce Harper ninth, right? As long as your best hitters are hitting closer to the top, the order doesn't really matter. So if you go Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, or if you go Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber, or whatever, they're your 4 best hitters. As long as they're hitting 1 through 4 in some order, you're probably going to score right around the same number of runs over the course of 162 games. So for me, and I know this is a little bit of a cop-out answer because you want me to say like Schwarber should lead off or Turner should lead off. For me, the bigger question and the bigger issue for them lineup-wise is, will they hit left-handed pitching? Because they're a very left-handed lineup. I know Schwarber's going to hit lefties. I know Harper's going to hit lefties. But will Marsh hit lefties? Will Stott hit lefties? And will Kepler hit lefties? And if they don't, the Phillies are going to be susceptible to left-handed pitching. They faced more lefty starters than any team in baseball last year.
Wow.
They're going to face a ton of lefty starters again. And if the bottom half of the order doesn't hit lefties, it's going to be a little bit of a problem.
So let's stay on that wavelength with pitching. On the Phillies side of things, a major concern for me going into the season is the instability and some of the uncertainty in the bullpen. You don't know yet what you're going to get from Jordan Romano. You can hope for the best. What have you heard regarding Strom's timeline to be ready to go this year?
So I feel like I write about Matt Strom like every other day because, as I said, there's really not a lot going on in this camp, and I kind of like. I do it because I think he's a really important part of this bullpen,
big time,
especially after losing Hoffman and Estevez. And when you hear like Strom had a little bit of, a shoulder impingement, it was causing some inflammation, and he didn't throw for 10 days, you're like, all right, well, they have to get this right because this is a guy that they can't afford to lose for a longer period of time. Now he's throwing again. He threw a bullpen yesterday, which was Wednesday. He will probably get in a game this weekend, Saturday or Sunday.
Nice.
And I think it's possible that that's enough. Like, if he makes 1 appearance, maybe 2, but probably 1, you might be able to just sort of like go into the season with him in your bullpen and, monitor it early on. So like he won't go back to back a lot, I think, the first week of the season, but they might be able to kind of do this and get him ready for the season. The flip side of that is that you can backdate an IL stint by 3 days. So that could be backdated to the 24th of March because the season starts on the 27th. And with the off days early in the year, if he started on the IL to give him a little bit more time to get ready, he's going to miss a maximum of, he could miss as few as 9 games and be back for the first game of that Atlanta series, game 10 of the season. It's really not a lot when you think about it, if it means making sure that Matt Strom is healthy and ready to go for the rest of the season. So they typically take a more conservative approach early in the year. It would not shock me if he started the year on the IL, but I think it's going to be close because, like I said, I do think he's going to get into a game before they break camp.
Makes me feel good.
That does.
Makes me feel good.
Staying on pitching, what have you heard, if anything, about Ranger Suarez? What's up with that, and what does it mean for Taijuan Walker?
Oh, man.
So it all kind of came up on Wednesday. Taijuan Walker pitched against the Yankees, and for the first time this spring, he really did not pitch well. It was a total dud. Gave up a few home runs, was not locating. The velocity was still there, but he was mislocating his pitches. He really got knocked around. And after the game, we asked Rob Thompson a little bit about kind of a question that I've been asking a little bit throughout camp, which is, until now, Walker had pitched better The velocity had been back. The splitter was better. Now, how does that stuff translate in the bullpen? Because he's been a starter throughout his career. You have 5 healthy starters, or you thought you did. If the season starts with Taijuan Walker going to the bullpen, can he maintain that stuff as a reliever? And Rob Thompson was kind of coy and a little vague about, well, we haven't named the rest of our rotation yet. And eventually he kind of came around to telling us that Ranger Suarez has a little bit of a stiff back. Now that sets off alarms because Suarez missed a month last year with a stiff back and was not the same pitcher in the second half of the year that he was in the first half. They've been, I would say, very kind of deliberate with him throughout camp, and I think that was intentional, not because he came to camp not feeling good, but I think because they looked at it and said, well, this is a guy who has never put together a full season before, and maybe we ease him into things in camp and get him going on a little bit of a, last year, like we all thought last year was great. Like he came to camp on time, no visa issues, full steam ahead, had a full spring training, and kind of hit a wall around the middle of the season and hurt himself. So maybe take a more deliberate approach this year. Well, now he comes up with this sore back, this stiff back. It sounds like I saw him today. He was in a good mood. He did some throwing today. He doesn't seem overly concerned about this whole thing. But again, he was supposed to start one of the split squad games on Friday, tomorrow. That won't happen. So, they'll have to look at it and say, well, does he start on the IL? And if he starts on the IL,
oh boy,
he could miss once. He could miss as few as one start because you've got the off days and you can play with the rotation a little bit. Taijuan Walker might have to make the first start in the rotation, and then Ranger can go back in. So I think it's still a little bit early to tell. Trending in a positive direction, but like I said, you hear Ranger Suarez stiff back, and you think, well, we've been down this road before.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
I think when it turned around last year was they were in Colorado, and he got hit with that pitch. And from that point on, Ranger never was the same.
It was never the same.
It's so crazy how that, and baseball is like that. It's so finicky. You know, and it happens with hitters too. Fall off a cliff after tearing the cover off the ball.
And that leads me to Bryson Stott. I mean, now we found out, like a month ago that he was dealing with something for most of last year, and that's why he was in this extended slump and really had a down year, a disappointing year. We all thought, hey, this kid was he was the man. He was going to be a star.
Briefly talking about him as like not the next Chase Utley, but hey, could he be really, really good?
Yeah,
for the best we've had since Chase at that position.
Are we expecting to see a Bryson Stott bounce back season?
A Stottissance, I think is what
like
you're talking about. Yes.
I like
that.
Yes.
I like that.
It's funny. They're putting a lot on this elbow injury that he had last year. Every time you ask Rob Thompson about it, he says, well, he had this elbow thing and he couldn't extend, and he would swing and miss, and there'd be pain there. And okay, I have no doubt that that's all true. Look, and kudos to Stott, right, for trying to play through it and, not succumbing to the injured list and thinking he could, like Bryce Harper dealt with a very similar injury last year, remember, with the wrist and the elbow, and would wince when he swung and missed and stuff. And he grinded through it and played through it. It obviously did affect Stott. Now, I mentioned this to a scout from another team when the Phillies brought up Rob Thompson, I think, volunteered the thing about the elbow at the winter meetings in December. We hadn't heard about it prior to that because nobody let on that Stott was dealing with anything. And I mentioned it to a scout from another team, and he said, okay, fine, but like a sore elbow does not explain how you get caught between, like how you sort of like are in between two plate approaches throughout the course of the year,
right.
Sort of indecisiveness at the plate. And I think that had a lot to do, as much as the physical thing, with the year Stott had. Like, he went into the year last year and they told him, if you think back to 2023, he had a good year and he did a lot of damage with 2 strikes, right? I think he led the league in 2-strike hits in 2023.
Yeah, what a great stat, too. What a great stat.
and the Phillies said correctly that, like, good for you that you've had success with 2 strikes, but that's a tough way for a hitter to live. Like, there's a reason why most hitters hit well below 200 with 2 strikes, because it's not easy to do. You don't want to start in that kind of a hole. And so maybe if you're a little more aggressive early in the count, maybe you don't fall behind as much. Maybe, they pointed to the grand slam he hit against the Marlins in that wild card series, and it was, I believe, the first pitch of an at-bat. And they said, like, if you get a ball you think you can drive early in the at-bat, don't be afraid to go after it.
Yeah.
And so he said, okay, fine. So he tried to be a little bit more aggressive early in the at-bats, and what happened was pitchers started to say, well, we're not going to throw you a fastball early in the at-bat. And they pitched backwards. They threw him a lot of off-speed early, and then they'd get him out on fastballs later.
Sounds like
count.
the playoffs. Sounds like the playoffs for the entire team.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So Stott was like, well, okay, well, maybe I should go back to being, a little bit more selective early in the count. And then they reversed the pattern on him. So he was kind of mixed up all year long. And I think one of the things, healthy elbow or not, is he's going to have to figure out who he is as a hitter. Like, what's his identity as a hitter? Who does he want to be? And I think I get the sense he's a little maybe closer to coming to some conclusion about that, like how he wants to attack things. But I think he was sort of caught in between last year, and healthy elbow or not, wasn't a good way to be.
Yeah, I believe in Bryson. I think he's going to actually have more of the 2022 Bryson.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think 22 or 23 was the good year. I forget which one it was, but
it was 23. And I agree with you. And I remember when I think of Stott, I think of something Rhys Hoskins said to me in the spring of 23 before he got hurt. We were talking about Stott and the year he had as a rookie. And Rhys said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of, I don't worry about Bryson. Like,
right.
I don't worry about him because I trust he's going to figure it out. Like, he looked like that kind of a player when he was a rookie, and even certainly in his second year. Like, he could go like 0 for a series, 0 for 12, and you were like, well, there are hits coming because he can make adjustments, he can figure things out. And last year was the first time that for an extended period of time he looked lost up there. And maybe it was because of the elbow, but like I said, I think it was also, he was in his own head. He wasn't sure of himself as a hitter. And I think he gets back to doing what he does well, and he'll be just fine.
We hope so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think so too, though. Definitely.
When do you project, Scott, that we'll see Justin Crawford and, for that matter, Andrew Painter?
The youngins.
So Andrew Painter, the plan is to kind of now that spring training is ending, to kind of build him and get him ready for the season. And we knew it was going to be this way. Like they said back in December, I think, that he wasn't going to pitch in any Grapefruit League games, that they were going to basically what it is with Andrew Painter is there's a number. There's going to be like an innings number on him because he's coming back from having not pitched in 2 years. And they don't want him to hit that number like in June, right? They want to have him from start to or throughout the course of the year. They don't want to have to shut him down early because they think he could be a real weapon for them in the second half.
Yeah.
So what you do is you start him slower. He's throwing live BP right now to hitters. He'll get into games, I think, in extended spring training when camp breaks, and then he'll probably start to climb the minor league ladder a little bit. I suspect they'll start him in Clearwater where it's warmer, and then bring him through. I don't know that he'll hit every level, but he's going to hit a few levels on his way up. And they've talked about bringing him to the big leagues around early summer, like late June, early July. I think Dombrowski said July-ish, which could mean June. It could mean August, but certainly it's going to be in that summertime, early summer window. And they're hoping that, that will get him to the end of the year with enough innings to help them right through the stretch run and into the playoffs. So, they're expecting that he will make his debut later this season and have a real impact on them. I was asked, we have our preview section coming out next week.
Yeah, man.
And we're going to start rolling stories out on the Inquirer website. And one of the things we were asked to make some predictions, and I think one of the questions on there was something like, "What's your boldest prediction for the season?" And I said, Andrew Painter's going to win. I forget what I said. If I said 8 or 10, he's going to have like 10 wins, and he's going to get the save in the game where they clinch the NL East. And, I think that he could kind of be an X Factor secret weapon sort of guy down the stretch, but they have to get him there. And so that's why he's kind of on this slower progression. With Crawford, I mean, look, the plan is more like 2026. But having said that, I will tell you, I covered the Red Sox back when Dave Dombrowski was the president of baseball ops there. And I saw him in 2016 call up Andrew Benintendi from AA. And I saw him a year later call up Rafael Devers after 5 games in AAA.
Wow.
So the point I'm making is Dombrowski's not afraid to jump a guy fast, a prospect fast, if he's playing well and if there's a need. And you look at center field and you say, well, maybe there'll be a need. They're going to give Brandon Marsh a chance to play every day,
right?
Which I'm all for.
Me too.
Because they need to answer that question of whether he can hit lefties. As far as I'm concerned, they don't really have enough evidence to say no yet. So, but if he doesn't hit lefties, or if Kepler struggles and you have to move Marsh back to left field, or if someone gets hurt, or whatever, they're not real deep in the outfield in their organization beyond the big league level. So if somebody goes down, Crawford's hit 300 everywhere he's been. I'm kind of a believer in Justin Crawford. I covered his dad, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so he has the genes, he has the talent.
Yep.
I know a lot of people look at it and go, well, he's got to hit the ball in the air more, or he's got to hit more line drive. Well, like when you run like Justin Crawford, you can hit the ball on the ground a little bit more than you'd like.
Yeah.
And he'll get a lot of infield hits.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his. I think he's going to be a good player, and I think he could be sooner than later, although I think there would have to be a real need for it to happen this year.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you need it and you can contribute, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But it has to be right. So you gave us one prediction before we let you go, along the same lines of the Painter prediction you gave with him clinching the NL East. Give us one more maybe surprise storyline for the player of your choice.
Boy, that's a good one.
There's a lot of players on this team to think about.
A lot of players and not a lot of questions, because they are who they are. Like even Trey Turner, who I know has gotten a lot of attention because of the way he finished last year. He's Trey Turner, right? So at the end of the day, you're pretty sure what you're going to get. Like, I'd be willing to bet he's going to hit somewhere between 285 and 300, and he's going to steal 20, 25, 30 bases. And, he's going to have a Trey Turner kind of year. Bryce Harper is going to have a Bryce Harper kind of year. So not a whole lot of, unknowns. Stott's an unknown, right? Because how does he bounce back from last year? Is he more the player he was in 23 or more the player he was in 24? I think he's more the player he was in 23. Marsh, I wonder whether he can play every day. They're going to find out. So I'm trying to think of where to go here.
How about Kepler? How about Kepler? Give me your tea leaves on Kepler in this Phillies lineup.
He's had a good spring. I don't really, I was someone who kind of looked a little sort of like, what are they doing when they signed him? Because he bats left-handed and he didn't hit for much power last year and he was hurt a lot of the year. He's healthy now and they think he's going to have a good year. I'll give you Christopher Sanchez. I love what I've seen from him this spring.
Me too.
He was a guy who did something really interesting that you don't see very much anymore, which was he dialed back the velocity in order to gain the command. And now that he's figured out how to command the ball, he's added the velocity back. So now he's throwing 97 and he's spotting it where he wants to. So as good as he pitched, as well as he pitched last year. And I had a scout say to me the other day, I have never seen a guy make the kind of improvement that he's I have a hard time coming up with someone who's made the kind of improvement that Sanchez has made.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think there's more ceiling there, believe it or not.
You're right.
And I think that he could really sort of turn into, he's a guy who last year at this time we thought was the 5th starter. And then as the year went on, he kind of became more like the 3rd starter. He was definitely a middle of the rotation guy. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who could slot in, even higher than that. He's not Zach Wheeler, but, he could be a number 2. I think he's got that kind of ceiling. So I'll give you Sanchez and how I think he's just going to continue to get better.
Yeah, I love that answer. I mean, we have the potential to have a rotation with 3 Cy Young candidates.
Yeah.
It's just remarkable. It's remarkable. So
well, and like Jesus Luzardo's a pretty good pitcher
he
too.
is, yeah.
So it's I'm actually writing something about this for next week. Like, you just don't have a lot of teams in 2025 who kind of put all their eggs in the rotation anymore the way the Phillies have. And I think that's the reason you get, like, when you ask, and I've asked a lot of Phillies people this spring, like, so why do you guys think you're going to be good again? Like, I know you won 95 games last year. There's a tendency to look around the league and go, oh, the Dodgers got even better. The Mets might have gotten better. You look around and you're like, well, what did the Phillies do? They kind of brought they kind of ran it back again. And the one answer you get is, like, we really believe in our starting pitching, and we think that's a separator for us.
it is.
They've been able to keep these guys relatively healthy. They've been able to keep them on the mound. And, as long as as long as you can throw out Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, Suarez, Luzardo, and eventually Painter, you give yourself a pretty good chance to win almost every game you play.
Yeah, going to be tough to beat, and hopefully
Yeah.
they can find it in the playoffs this year, and have a parade down Broad Street.
I'm psyched right now. I'm ready.
Okay, all right, good.
I'm ready.
Good. You got Tech ready,
Scott got me ready for baseball.
Good.
Psychologically, I had to get there.
Yeah. Well, coming off of a Super Bowl championship, it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah,
it takes
it's true.
A little time. But here we are, and there you have it, folks. Scott Lauber of the Inquirer on the Vet Line. We appreciate your time, your insight, Scott, and we're looking forward to a great year of baseball from our Fightins.
You bet. Anytime, guys.
That's Scott Lauber from the Philadelphia Inquirer, getting us ready for the season.
Yeah, what a great first Phillies guest of the year.
I mean,
set us off in the right direction. Baseball is back.
I really am pumped right now. After that, I'm like ready to see Stott. I'm ready to see Luzardo. I'm ready to see Sanchez. I'm like, let's get it going. I think,
Yes, sir.
I think the National Series. I think Wheeler's game 1, but who's game 2 for you?
I mean, you got to stick with your guy Knowles for sure. Yeah, you stick with Nola. I mean, whether
Well, then
it's
who's
Nola,
third?
Sanchez, Nola, doesn't matter.
See, here's the thing. I think I move Luzardo up. And the reason why I move Luzardo up is because I don't think I want Luzardo to start off the season with the pressure at home. Let him start off on the road and maybe push Sanchez back. Have it go, Wheeler, Nola, Luzardo, and then have Sanchez start game 1 at home because people be pumped for
and
that.
at home, he's almost unbeatable.
Right, and then, you go with whatever,
You
if
can
it's
shake it up.
Taiwan
Yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
God forbid. But then Wheeler on that Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? I'm not mad at that. I think, it's tomatoes and potatoes. They're all around. I don't think that's quite how the saying goes, but we're gonna work with that.
But it's all good. But next time we are on, the Phillies will have played their first game.
And just a little bit of a note for our fans to look ahead. You got the Braves in San Diego for the opening series. That's a good one within the division.
Yep.
You have the New York Mets out in Houston. You got to take on the Astros. That's a good one in the division.
That's a good one.
Marlins hosting the Pirates. So, you got some NL East action right out the gate. There's some tough matchups for all of the teams in the division.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Phils got the easiest one.
Well, I mean, Pirates aren't exactly.
The Pirates,
they got to face
but you got to
teams,
face
though.
games.
Gotta face
Yeah, I
teams.
mean, that's going to be tough.
Yeah. Phils win 2 out of 3 in D.C.
There we go. We will see you next week. Go Phils.
Vet Alumni.